welcome to our first Friday Forum with Lancaster City Police Chief John Bay. My name's Diana Martin, and I'm the new Executive Director here at Hourglass. I look forward to getting to know all of you in the coming weeks and months. Today's a little bit of a unique event for Hourglass. While we have people here in person who will have the opportunity to get to meet Chief Bay and network, we also have a group who are joining us virtually via live stream. Welcome to you all. I'd like to thank our first Friday Forum sponsor, Rogers & Associates. I'd also like to thank Millersville University and the Ware Center for hosting us today. After Chief Bay shares with us his remarks, there'll be an opportunity for questions from the audience. If you're joining the live stream, just drop those questions in the chat feature. Mayor Deneen Sirachi was actually supposed to be with us today to introduce Chief Bay, and she just had a family emergency at the last minute, so she's not able to be here, but she extends her well wishes and her support for the city police and John Bay. And she looks forward to joining us at our February First Friday Forum, so we'll look forward to hearing from the mayor there. So with that, I have the incredible honor of getting to introduce our new city police chief, John Bay, today. He comes to the city with a passion for law enforcement, community engagement, and public service, and a long history and career of policing. He was the chief of police at the Middletown Borough Police Department and is a retired captain after a 25-year career with the Pennsylvania State Police. He also is a graduate of Elizabethtown College, of the Community College of the Air Force, and of the FBI National Academy. So without further ado, I'm going to hand the mic over to Chief Bay and look forward to hearing more about your leadership and your vision for the city police. Thanks for being here.
Good afternoon. So before we get started, I just wanted to give everyone a little bit of a sense of my state of mind. I think I got it. Thank you. My state of mind today. So if this is kind of a preamble. So if I slur some words or I fall asleep here at the podium, you'll understand. You'll give me a little bit of leeway, and you'll understand. So by show of hands, who has pets here or cats or whatever? So okay. So I guess we have a cat. It's my wife's cat, but I guess it's our cat. And I'm not much of a cat person. So anyway, I get home last night after work and going to the gym, and you know, I get home and I walk in the door and I don't smell anything, you know, good aromas coming from the kitchen. And I walk in the kitchen and my wife is in tears. And lo and behold, the cat is sick and has been a bit lethargic and not eating for the past couple days. So she's in a state of, I don't know, she's almost apoplectic about it, right? So she's on the phone and with veterinaries and ERs, and you know, she wanted to even drive. I live outside of Harrisburg, and she even wanted to drive here to Lancaster last night to go to I guess there's a veterinary ER here locally. And this was now about 8 o'clock at night. So, you know, I had to bring her back from the ledge, get her, you know, kind of calm her down, and hey, honey, the cat's going to be fine. Needless to say, because the angst and anxiety in our home was so high, we didn't go to sleep until midnight. And then she was back up at 4 o'clock in the morning to take the cat to the ER vet. So quite naturally, if she's up at 4, I'm up at 4, you know? So here I stand today before you, running on fumes. It's Friday, it's been a long week. I'm running on about 3 hours of decent sleep. And so that's just, you know, my preamble so that if I begin to slur words or otherwise start to fade out, you understand, and just give me a little bit of leeway. So I was asked to come and address you folks and just kind of give you a bit of my background and what brought me to Lancaster and why I wanted to be chief of police here. So I am from the great city of Pittsburgh. Any Pittsburgh Steelers fans in here? Yeah? All right, all right. Sam, I know you're no? A little bit? So I grew up in the city of Pittsburgh and initially attended the University of Pittsburgh right out of high school. Kind of got bored with that whole thing, and I ended up joining the United States Air Force Reserves and spent quite a bit of time in the reserves in 1986. In 1989, I joined the state police, and boy, I tell you, that was one of the best things I ever did. My career took off, and I continued to do both careers in the reserves and with the state police. And kind of grew up in the state police and law enforcement. And ironically, my very first station was here in Lancaster, right out on Troop J, out on 30. And so that began essentially my love affair with this county and with this city in 1989. And it's kind of neat because as I come back here as a chief, a lot of the officers whom I befriended then are now chiefs of other police departments in the area. And so it's great to come back and reestablish those relationships at an executive level and reestablish those collaborations. So I went up through the ranks in the state police. I actually did some work here in Lancaster as a lieutenant on disproportionate minority contact with respect to our young folks and the disparities in the juvenile justice system. And we try to conduct a deep dive into what are the systemic issues leading to this disparity of black and brown youths in our justice system. So I did that as a lieutenant, and I was director of our Heritage Affairs office at the time with the state police. I then promoted again to captain and took over recruitment and special services. I oversaw the recruitment function of the state police as well as the drug analysis program for the department. And then I went to the academy and was director of administration for a little while, and then I was director of training. I retired in 2014 and became the chief of police in Middletown, which I'm sure everyone's seen on the news yesterday. They had a scary guy there building bombs, it looked like. So that was my town for about 2.5 years. I resigned from that position for, how can I say, there was not ethical alignment between myself and the borough council and the mayor, and I'll leave it at that. We just weren't ethically aligned with respect to the direction of the police department. I'll say they had no direction, and the borough managers or borough supervisors. So I left that and went full-time into the military. By this time, I had 31 years in the military, and I had transferred from the Air Force Reserves to the Pennsylvania Air National Guard. And at this point, I was at the highest enlisted rank of Chief Master Sergeant. And I went in as the superintendent for our comptroller flight, so kind of oversaw the budget for the base and ensured that the budget, when it was appropriated from Congress down to the base, that it was spent legally and in accordance with Congress's wishes in terms of anti-deficiency and a whole bunch of different other terms that relate to how you could get in trouble with spending Congress's money. So it was my job and my commander's job to make sure that our various commanders on base spent that money legally. So all of that really has kind of set me up for success, I believe, in this position. I have a long, extensive background in knowledge in community policing, and I could have gone into a whole different array of things I did in the state police, but a lot of it lend itself to community policing. So I have that. The military background, the military bearing, the knowledge of fiscal responsibility and good stewardship of taxpayers' dollars is essential in this particular position. And so as I was transitioning out of the military, a friend of mine came up to me, and behind his mask, I could see he was smiling, and I'm sitting at my desk, and I'm like, what are what do you have, what's going on? He says, hey, I have Scott Little, who's our fire chief, who's also at the 193rd. And Scott and I just had a bit of a peripheral type of relationship. We weren't buddies. I would see him in the hallway on drill weekends, and since I worked there full time and he just works drill weekends, that's the only time I would pass Scott in the hallway. But anyway, Scott went to this mutual friend of ours and presented to him. He knew I was retiring and said, hey, ironically, my rank in the military was chief as well. Asked Chief Bay if he would be interested in becoming an interim police chief in Lancaster. And by this time, I had been out of law enforcement for about 4.5 years. And I thought, there's nothing wrong with a conversation, right? You don't know what you don't know until you talk about it. So I said, sure. So they connected me with Mayor Sirachi, and we spoke that night for probably about 2 hours. And let me tell you, I was impressed. I was very impressed. When we got down to the nuts and bolts of our strategic vision for the city and for the police department, when you want to talk about alignment, ethical alignment, strategic alignment, I just thought, hey, this could be a great match. And I'll add, too, that, the 4 years that I was out of law enforcement gave me a different perspective on how law enforcement is trending in our country. Certainly after the George Floyd murder and a whole host of other incidences that were almost identical to George Floyd. And you can just see the wave, the movement of law enforcement, how it's trending. So with that in mind, and with these conversations I had with Mayor Sirachi, she invited me in for an interview to meet her executive leadership team and the leadership team at the police department. So I did that on 2 occasions, and I got grilled. Let me tell you, I got grilled. Each time was probably a 3-hour conversation, if you will, and we all decided that, hey, Chief Bay coming in as our chief of police seems like a good fit. And let me tell you, I was interviewing them as well as they were interviewing me. So there was consensus, and so they said, yeah, we'd like you to be our interim chief. I have no idea what that meant. And during our interview, I said, listen, interim, that's your word. I don't know what that means. I know what it means. But when you're sitting in this chair, I could not sit at the head of an organization and keep the seat warm. And I essentially told them that. I said, I'm not coming in here to keep the seat warm. I'm coming in here to discharge the duties of a chief of police, and I'll make the decisions necessary to move the organization forward, whether it's discipline matters or initiatives, adherence to our strategic plan. I'm gonna do all of that. So you hold on to that interim title, and we'll see how the chips fall. So, and I came in with eyes wide open that there was going to be a selection process, a robust selection process to select the permanent chief. And I encouraged the mayor. I said, hey, you owe it to this community to find the best person, the best fit for this community as chief of police. And, no feelings hurt if it's not me. I mean, I'll come in and I'll do the job. And at the end of the day, if I'm not selected, it will be a warm handover. There won't be no need for an insurrection or anything. I've lost the election, and I will, hand over the keys to the next chief, and I will help that person assimilate into the position and hand over all my notes and whatever else we're doing. So I guess the chips fell in my favor, huh? So here I stand before you, June 21st. It was announced that I was selected as your chief, and here I am. And I'm very blessed to be here. I'm humbled, and I'm very happy to be here. I'm a lifelong public servant, as I just kind of skimmed over my professional career. I started my career here in Lancaster, and I'm just so blessed to be here to finish my career here. I kind of think that whenever my time here is done, I will ride off into the sunset, and that'll probably be it for me in law enforcement. I'm a husband, I'm a grandfather, I have a 1-year-old grandson. I have adult children who I pray will bless me with many more grandchildren, and then it'll be time to spend time with them. So that's who I am in a nutshell. That's why I'm here. And I'm looking forward to hopefully continuing to build a relationship with everybody in this room, partnering with you, because that's essential to effective policing in our community. Is we have to have a partnership. We can't do it alone. We need you. So I wrote down some notes here, and I was asked to give you a kind of a synopsis of what the future looks like. Listen, I've been here for 9 months. If you count the whole interim position thing, and kind of flowed right into being your permanent chief. And I'm not doing anything different today that I didn't do in December when I first onboarded as the interim. So I thought that, and everything that I've talked about with respect to our strategies of transparency, accountability, partnering with the community, those have been well documented, and I've spoke about that on numerous occasions. And so I would think that everybody in this room probably read that somewhere, heard it on the news, seen it, or somehow familiar with it. So the notes that I have here today will basically be a highlight of the past 9 months. And it's my wish that when I'm done going over these things, that it'll spark some very salient questions, and we can have a good conversation, provided we have time left at the end. And even afterwards, if we don't have time, I'll hang out. And any questions you have, or any comments, or anything you want me to expound on, just let me know. So during my swearing-in remarks on June 21st, I stated in part that the mission of the Lancaster Police Bureau is to be a professionally responsive and innovative police agency committed to outstanding service and protection with integrity, and to be responsive and innovative. I'm committed to a transparent, accountable, accessible police department. To accomplish our mission, we embrace a community engagement, data-driven policing strategy that emphasizes our core values of service, integrity, honor, courage, commitment, and duty. We hold ourselves accountable to each other and to our community. Every member of the Police Bureau, uniformed and non-uniformed, is judged on what their contribution is to our core mission. So then the question becomes, what does that look like in real life, boots on the ground? And it starts with the mayor's strategic priorities of strong neighborhoods, stronger, equitable communities, enhancing the quality of life, and core values of quality, teamwork, and respect. So that translates, so anytime you're in executive leadership, we all know the overarching strategy. I've not been directed by the mayor to do A, B, C, or D. It's my job to come in, look at the strategic plan, look at the strategies, and align our organization to be a prong from that, and align with those core values and that her strategic priorities. So what does that look like for our police bureau? It looks like the first thing is policy and oversight. We've begun the process to align our police bureau with 21st century policing guidelines. And we've done that by hiring an organization called CNA, a professional outside agency, to review and rewrite our policy manuals to align it with 21st century policing guidelines. I'm in the process of hiring an outside agency to review our internal affairs, our use of force, and our discipline processes. There's work to be done there. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. So we have an outside agency coming in to review those processes, to do a gap analysis, and to provide recommendations how to bolster our discipline process, and how to review citizens' complaints more efficiently, effectively, to ensure that we're meeting our goals with our community to be transparent and be accountable. And at the end, I'll have that agency create a fair and equitable discipline matrix. so that if I'm imposing discipline for any infraction on an officer, and as that investigation from internal affairs matriculates through the process and it comes to my desk, and I take a look at it, I review the entire investigation and all the evidence and the body-worn cameras, and I come to a decision that supports the internal affairs investigation, I have a discipline matrix that will say, okay, it was an infraction, I don't know, let's just say being rude to somebody. And you look on your matrix, and then you come over, oh, that's a day. They get either, I don't know, a written reprimand or a day in the street, but it's going to be uniform, it's going to be fair, and it's going to be equitable, so that there's no subjectivity, whether, somebody will think, oh, you like him better than you like her. It's going to be uniform, equitable, and fair to everybody. The policy rewrite that I just spoke of with regard to our policy manual and our internal affairs has a very strong, transparent, public review component to each of them. CNA, who's already in the process of rewriting our policies, have already reached out to the community and held those community conversations to get input. And we'll have that same template when our internal affairs processes are being reviewed and rewritten. So you can expect to see that as well. Community policing and crime reduction. So we engage in a collaborative effort with other city offices to reduce criminal activity by addressing quality of life issues. Research tells us that there's a nexus between quality of life and crime. And if you go into any particular community, not necessarily here in Lancaster, but also in Lancaster, typically where you see communities that experience, blight, there's street lights out, there's trees overgrown, there's trash everywhere. There's a nexus between environments like that and crime rates. And so by the police department partnering with Department of Public Works and CPAD and the Office of Neighborhood Engagement to identify when we're in a particular neighborhood, to identify these types of quality of life issues, that's that nexus, that's that component other than law enforcement that we believe will lend itself to crime reduction. And at the very least, it'll make our neighborhoods more beautiful, right, and more livable, and people begin to take pride in their environment. And we'll continue to collect and collate enforcement and use of force data and make it public facing. So we're already doing that. Every quarter, I have our use of force statistics compiled, and they're made public. And so anybody who has questions about how many use of force incidences we've had in our police department since I onboarded in December, well, we did a compilation of stats for 2020, and actually that's 3 years of data, 17 through 20, but certainly in 21 we've done it on a quarterly basis. And if you go out to our website, you'll be able to look at those statistics. And we also have crimes, the number of crimes, quality of life type crimes also made public. And and that's all goes back to our mission of being responsive, being innovative and responsive, and being transparent. And these are things that our community has asked for. We also engage in utilizing the block strength indicator and other data gathering systems to implement a data-driven approach to crime reduction. So we all know that data provides insight. And so if you're going to be a good steward of taxpayer dollars and you want to focus on certain areas, you have to have data. You can't be willy-nilly out there trying this here and that there without supporting data. So we want to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars. We want to be data-driven. We want to be intentional and precise in our enforcement efforts. And so we use this block strength indicator as a form of data analysis, and that's open to the public as well. And we're also looking at another function called crime mapping. The block strength indicator, has anybody looked at that? You familiar with that? So if you go out there, it's not really user-friendly. when you go and you open it up and you look at it, and there's a map of the city, and then there's like this, looks like a bird shot of data points on it that you can click on, and then it'll lead you to something else, and then ultimately you'll find out, what, if you're looking for how many thefts are in this particular block, eventually you'll get there. But it's a little bit circuitous, and it's also hard to navigate on the user's end. So we're looking at a database called Crime Mapping that is very user-friendly. It's easy on the eyes. It's easy to navigate, and I think that'll be a much better end-user product at the end of the day for our community. So that'll be on the horizon. We listened, responded, and brought back our bike patrols. And they've been a huge success in our community and in the police bureau. And there was a little grumbling at first, because that particular function had been probably on about a 5 or 6 year hiatus. And we had, probably 13 or 14 bikes that weren't being utilized and all this equipment. And, our community and residents are asking for bike patrols. It's part of the strategic plan for community engagement. It lends itself to a better relationship between police officers and our residents, right? We're not stuck in that car, and it's an opportunity to actually engage people. So we sent 10 people to training in September, and it's taken off like wildfire. So I'm happy to say that I have another class going in at the end of October to increase the complement of bike patrols. And of course, our non-enforcement community activities. And I would venture to say that if you live in a city, you've seen our officers out there in non-enforcement type roles, community events. In fact, we have a public safety day scheduled in early October at Brightside Church, in which we're bringing together police, EMS, fire, and other community organizations for a big public safety day there in the parking lot. So if you're in the neighborhood, please stop by. So our future plans. Accreditation. I don't know if any of you are familiar with police accreditation, but what that does is it provides agency legitimacy among state and county police agencies because it creates consistency in processes. And there's a very high standard that you have to meet with respect to how you maintain your processes, your paperwork, your databases. There's a checklist that you have to adhere to. You become accredited, and it does. It provides, legitimacy to what we do and how we do it across the board, and and to other agencies, and it, makes us a role model for other police agencies. We'll continue our dynamic community engagement and dialogue processes. We'll work with faith-based and community organizations to hold outdoor public safety days and other positive community engagement events. I just spoke to one. And I gotta tell you that those types of events, well, let me back up. So in addition to bike patrols, one of the things that I'm hearing from our community is, hey, we want our police department to be a reflection of our diverse community. So we want you to recruit here in the city. There's a long history between police departments and communities of color that are absolute impediments and barriers to effective recruiting. We have we have a class taking the written test for police on Saturday, tomorrow. There's 131 people taking the test. 131. I'm not sure of the demographics of the makeup, but so that's 131 people for all of the police departments in Lancaster County. I'll be happy if we can get 2 or 3 of them here. So that kind of lends itself to the trending of the perception of law enforcement. Our noble profession is taking a beating, and these types of numbers have been going downhill since I was in the state police, and I've seen it coming. So, but anyway, so what we want to do is enhance our recruitment efforts here in the city. And that will start a robust program here starting in January. We've increased our complement of recruiters in our police department to 20, from 1 when I got here to 20. And so, with engagement activities, effective marketing, I'm hiring a social media marketing specialist that will create a dashboard for us to market our police department in a manner that is attractive to young folks, because, we have old 20-year cops behind the scenes of our marketing effort, and it's just not hitting the mark. So yeah, but that all starts with building that trust because of this very complex history that exists between police departments, law enforcement, and communities of color. So we have to continue to always build that trust and legitimacy in our communities. And on that note, it's incumbent that we have people like yourselves being an advocate for your police departments. And, you have sway in your communities. You have people believe in what you have to say. So it's part of that partnership that I speak of, and we could really use your help with our recruitment efforts. So part of that also too, how am I on time? Okay. So one of the things that I looked at, again, with regard to recruiting and hiring, I looked at our hiring process. Yeah, it needed a little bit of work. So typically, there's a written test, there's an oral board background, and there's a physical component that the candidate has to pass. And the way we've done it in the past, the oral boards were almost at the end of the selection process. The oral board was a pass or fail. The questions really had there were no outcomes for the questions. Like the questions weren't to elicit any type of humanity-type qualities or core values from the candidate. So what I did was I asked our solicitor to rewrite our civil service regs to weight our oral boards, to make them 60%. The written test is 40%. I moved the oral boards up right after the written test, so that candidates who typically score, you have to have a 80 on a written test to make it to the orals. Typically, candidates of color typically score around in an 80 lower percentile. And we have enhancers like military points, and if you're from the city, you get points, and you get points if you're bilingual, 3 points. But that 10 military points was huge, and it was blowing people out of the water. And so that would jump people to the top of the list. And so by the time we got down to the 80 percentile, people who scored in the 80, 81, 82, all the jobs were filled. So by moving that the oral board up to right after the written test, by weighting it to be a little bit more than a written test, because that written test really is not a very good indicator of whether or not you'll be a good police officer. The oral board does. I had a police psychologist and a person who is an expert in diversity, equity, inclusion type processes develop questions that are designed to elicit a response that would be an indicator of our core values of service, honor, integrity, courage, commitment, and duty. That it will elicit communication skills, because we know this particular generation is very electronic. And at the end of the day, policing is still this is a people job, man. You gotta talk to people, you reach out, you touch people, you interact with folks, and you gotta know how to build that rapport rather quickly in some cases. And so now our questions there's meat on the bones. And the meat that's on the bones now has weight. And so what it does is it gives us an opportunity to look at all of the candidates right at the very top. And then if they, as they matriculate through the process, If their background negates them from moving further, so be it. But at least we had an opportunity to sit that candidate down in front of us and have a conversation. And oh, by the way, that oral board will have a community member on it as well. So it's just not all police officers. I didn't expect that. And is that right? So that pretty much sums up what I wanted to go over. And these are things, again, that I've talked about as I kind of progressed from December up to today. And I was sent some questions just to kind of spark some thought with regard to our social workers. I kind of touched on recruitment and training. And a community and police working group. There were questions regarding that. So having said all that, I'll open up the floor. If there's anything that anybody has, yes, sir. All right, I can't understand what you're saying.
What has surprised you in your time overseeing the department, good and bad?
So what has surprised me? I've been in this game a long time. Nothing really surprises me. But I will tell you that I was very happy to witness the dedication that our police officers have to this community, the level of professionalism that they have, their knowledge with regard to conducting high-level investigations. We have one of the highest clearance rates, and the clearance means when you make an arrest on a case in the county, especially for homicides and shootings and aggravated assaults and those type of high-end crimes. So that was very pleasing for me, coming from the state police, a very highly trained, highly organized, policy-driven organization, to come here and see a microcosm of that. And every organization needs a few tweaks here and there, and so does the state police, believe me. So that was the most pleasing. Not surprising, but pleasing. On the bad side, there were some internal things that were not adhered to, that from a command executive perspective needed addressed. And I don't want to really get into the nuts and bolts of it, but myself and we onboarded 2 new captains when I came on in December. We promoted 2 lieutenants to captain, our patrol captain and our administrative captain. And so when we sat down and conducted an assessment of issues from the last leadership that needed addressed, I was a little dismayed that some cans were kicked down the road way too far and needed to be addressed. And so we were able to address those over the past 9 months, and I think that it has improved morale. Yes, sir.
When you look at a state like Lancaster, we had the bicycle patrols.
Yes.
Were very good and more interaction with police out of their cars.
Yes.
It all sounds like a very logical thing to do. And then find those things sort of disappear. Mm-hmm. And Lancaster, you're bringing it back again. Mm-hmm. Very, very good. What do you see happens to cities? Why do they stop doing things that seem to be working so well? How do we put something back in place that hopefully stays in place?
Mm-hmm. So you're kind of referring to sustainability. I think, and I've been around the block a few times, and I've seen initiatives come on board that took off like wildfire, and then over the course of time began to dissipate and die because, it could be a number of things. It could be money. It could be the person in charge of that initiative moved on, either retired, got promoted, or moved to another part of the agency. And so, excuse me, and so the excitement and the fervor for that particular initiative began to wane. And so I think it's important to institute policy with regard to initiatives, and like the bike patrol. I can tell you that however long I'm here, we'll see that. I don't know what's going to happen when I leave, but it's a priority for me. Since it's my priority, then you make it happen. So I think there are a myriad of reasons why those types of initiatives begin to die out. So it's just on that organization's leadership to ensure that they put into place some mechanisms of sustainability to make it policy. And then, when you're promoting people, when you're talking about changing the culture of an organization or shifting a paradigm, you have to be very intentional of the people that you promote, and to ensure that they're in line with what you're putting in place, and that they're going to, after you're gone, it reasonably sure that they're going to keep those measures in place. So, and I'm happy to say that's what we're doing here in Lancaster City. We're being very intentional about who we promote and our onboarding of the new police officers coming on board. Yes, ma'am. Yes. So I did a little analysis based on that question. In the first half of 2021, there's about 500 referrals. Our police social workers have made about 500 referrals to mental health agencies and other agencies to support folks who fall into that category. And that's out of, I think I looked at about almost 15,000 calls for service that we've done just from January through the end of June. So we'll be posting this current quarter at the end of September. That is a very healthy, robust program. We have two very dedicated professional social workers who are very, very good at what they do. I don't see that program going anywhere anytime soon. In addition to what they do out in the community, they also provide services internally to our police officers. They provide crisis intervention training. They provide critical incident, CISM, what does that stand for? CISM training, critical incident stress management training. They provide that. They're there as part of our peer support program for our officers who are experiencing a mental crisis or something aligned with that, to provide those services. And they'll also be an integral part of training the trauma-informed training that will commence here very shortly. So a very important part of the team, and we're happy to have them and blessed to have them. And I think our community has responded as well to them, that they see the value in having them. Yep. Yes, ma'am. My pleasure. Thank you. You too. You're welcome. Thank you. Is it getting better or is it getting worse? It would be better if we didn't have it, right? That would be the best case scenario. So certainly there are things with respect to drug usage, the selling of narcotics, everything associated with that. There are things that are so far out of our control. And oftentimes we are reactive in nature. We can be proactive. We have our county drug task force. We have a selective enforcement unit composed of Lancaster City police officers who, when we get a tip, that they'll go out and investigate those types of tips and conduct, for lack of a better term, covert type of investigations to, make an appropriate arrest. Drug trafficking, there's so many prongs to it, and of course the biggest prong is money. And money, to some people speaks to quality of life, even though it's dirty money, it's short-lived money. And these are things that, these are attributes or these are values that are, quite frankly, taught at home. And there's some things that we just have no control over. And that's why it's so important for us to continue to build that community trust, because, again, going back to that whole partnership that I speak about all the time, and, we're not omnipresent. We can't be everywhere all the time and see everything. And so we need our community that when they see something, say something, even if it's anonymous. Give us a call, shoot me a text or an email, or, all of our sector officers' emails are on our website. They can shoot them an email of what they saw, any bit of information to help us mitigate that problem. I don't think it will go away. I just don't. It's been here forever. It'll be here long after I'm gone. But we'll keep trying, and we'll do what we can to try to reduce those numbers as much as possible. I don't know if I answered your question. I might have danced around it a little bit, but okay. Yeah. 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 So what part of Benz Park? We talking congregants or are we talking drug use? And some of it's related and some of it isn't. Yeah. 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 Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Thank you. Yeah. 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 Well, because there's a multitude of issues there, it requires a multitude of agencies to respond. And as you know, there's an interdisciplinary team that was put together at a high level to address the multitude of problems with respect to mental health issues, drug usage, drug selling, homelessness, and all the other prongs that stick out from Benz Park. So since I've been here, since December, I know of two multiple warrant services that we've done there as as your city police department, that we've done investigations, covert investigations, and we got a lot of K2 out of there, and we've arrested a lot of K2 dealers. Strategies I can't speak to because we're police officers. We get called in at the last minute when all other strategies cease to work, to go in it and do what we do, and that's investigate and arrest folks. But certainly you have to be compassionate with these folks who have mental health issues. And you can't arrest your way out of, whatever their issues are. We have to, this interdisciplinary team, I would think, will come up with some strategies to deal with that in a compassionate, humane way. And and there's some folks that just don't want the services. When I first got here in December, as you folks remember, we had that really bad snowstorm. And so I spent the night here in the city, and so I stayed at the Holiday Inn there up the street from Benz Park. And so I worked until about maybe 7:30, 8 o'clock that night. And, I decided it's time to get some sleep, and I started to walk up to the hotel, and there's an individual laying in front of the county building covered in snow. He was in a sleeping bag, but he was covered in snow, he or she. And, it's heartbreaking to see that. So the next day, I spoke with my social worker, and she knew exactly who I was talking to. And she had been out there before the storm hit, trying to, round folks up and get shelter for them. The person refused it. Well, so what do you do? It's not a good look, but what do you do? So, I am not part of that interdisciplinary think tank. I've instructed my patrol commander, Captain Mendez, who is part of that think tank. So he briefs me every time there's a meeting. I don't know that they've met recently. I don't think so. But I'm happy to hear you say you've seen some improvement. And all we can do is just keep at it. Yeah. Well, after having a meeting with one of the county commissioners and the facility services person at the county building, there were some mitigation efforts to be implemented with respect to a gate back there by Wells Fargo. Oh, okay. Was that up yet? Okay. Yeah. Increase the lighting, make it more luminous, more cameras, high-level cameras, and turn them outward toward the park to provide, good information for us. So there's some mitigation efforts that have been implemented, but dealing with human beings, and we can't arrest our way out of it. But certainly, any calls for service that, in that park, we're there. And we continue to have our selective enforcement unit there to conduct drug investigations and make arrests. I think I'll say this in closing. One of your final questions to me was, what are the greatest challenges for the Lancaster City Police and what are the greatest opportunities? And I'll close with this, that our greatest challenge is our greatest opportunity, and that's building trust and legitimacy in our community. That's our greatest challenge with all the things going on all over the country and that's trending in our profession. That's our greatest challenge. But at the end of the day, when you're successful, it's the most rewarding. So we'll keep at it. Thank you so much for having me here. It's been a pleasure. Thank you.
This down a little bit. Thank you so much, Chief Bay, and thank you all for being with us today. A video recording of today's event will be made available on our website and YouTube channel sometime next week, so please feel free to share that with community members who you feel would benefit from getting to know Chief Bay. Our next First Friday Forum will be held on October 1st, and we'll be talking about the role of the performing arts here in Lancaster City and doing a tour of the newly renovated Fulton Theater. To receive invitations to all of our First Friday events, please become an Hourglass member on our website at hourglasslancaster.org. I hope you can all join us. Until then, have a great weekend.